whoever is watching us live and will watch us recorded. Welcome to the Moreness Culture and the Moreness channel and the Moreness show. Yes, because we have so many things happening here. This tiny channel is providing so much value and goodness. Please do subscribe to and like and leave a comment here, because by doing so, you are going to train your online algorithm to ultimately affect your life algorithm to bring more goodness and life and value into your life. And this is what we all want to. I assume so, that we all want to have value and goodness in our life. This is what we are doing here. So welcome to the show, Syl. Well, Syl is busy doing all these things. We have so many things coming, and they are all in the pipeline. You will see a lot of
what things? What things am I doing?
Yes, I'm not going to spoil it because a lot of things are coming. A lot of good things are coming into this channel, and they all are in pipeline. And you will see a lot moreness, of course. And we are keen to invite, like we have Syl a few days ago, and we would love to invite more people, more good, earnest people on this show, and just they want to have some goodness and value from them also. Life is about having multiple alternative perspectives. The value of life is in, the magic of life is in having multiple and alternative perspectives. The understanding that multiple and alternative perspectives can coexist. This is the real, I personally feel this is the real key to have understanding and awareness in life. The problem with us that we assume that whatever this is the perspective, and now I'm going to stick with it. Because our ego says, oh, you put a lot of effort, you have been struggling to get through this, and now finally you have found one. So now this is going to be the elixir of life for you. This is not how life actually works, because the stagnation is the other word or the synonym of death. How can you just stick to one perspective when you can have more, all caps more here? So the real thing is to understand that multiple and alternative perspective can coexist. That's why we have a variety.
And they are essential and crucial.
Exactly. They are essential and crucial. Having multiple perspectives. Yes. Having multiple perspective, even multiple perspective, doesn't mean that this is going to be the end of it. This is appropriate for you right now, as long as the other more appropriate perspective will not come. And this is so huge in Way-Of-Impeccability. The first time when I was in the beginning, I was interacting with Syl. Syl used to have a background of some rectangular shapes coming from.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
Yes, that background was so huge for me, because for me that was the understanding of Way-Of-Impeccability and multiple perspective coexistence. That was the thing that you can, because Syl was using analogy of that to understand that what's inside the house from the outside. You can of course go through different windows and see, okay, yes, this. But how many windows do you have to go through? All the windows and see? No, not necessarily. But at least enough that, yes, to have some sort of idea at least. And that was really understanding, because really interesting for me. That was really interesting for me, because nobody actually give you this understanding that where you can feel that, okay, now I have done enough. I'm not closing myself, but I'm stopping right here and waiting until something more profound will come. Yes, but right now I have some sort of understanding, and my conscience is clear. My conscience is clear. That was like a real transformation for me. Okay, so it's not like, okay, I'm not a hamster on a wheel, so that continuously going without reaching anywhere. But yes, till your conscience is clear. And that was the satisfaction. That was the peace of me.
Yeah, thinking things through to the end. That's the point you're
Yes.
mentioning here, right? In relation to that. How
Yes.
do you know you get to the end? When your conscience is clear. That's when, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
very, very
Because
powerful, Beena. Very,
I
very
was
powerful.
saying in the context of having multiple and coexisting and alternative perspectives that yes, they all exist. How I'm going to choose which one, and also how I'm going to feel satisfied that yes, I have done my research enough, and now I'm okay. I'm right now. I am going with this perspective till something new and profound come and change my perspective. So that was the time you mentioned that, because I was continuously asking you, like how, till
Yeah,
when, growing and learning, how
yeah.
much, like when? Because in the beginning, I was not getting it. It was in the beginning, it was not a joy in learning and growing. It was my work, it was my duty, it was my obligation, which I was trying to
That's
fulfill
no
that.
good,
Okay,
Beena.
yes,
That's no good at all. That's no good at
yes,
all.
that was
No, don't
that
be that
was
way.
me in the beginning. I was feeling
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's why my question was coming again and again. Till when, Syl? Okay, because I was coming from the should educational system that okay, yes, once you will
yeah.
go through till the standard 10, and then okay, and then you will pass out. Okay, now you will go for 2 years in the college. Okay, then you will go, okay, for graduation 2 years, and then you will go to the university, and then you will do this, and then you will get job. So our things were tied up with the goals. Okay, so now achieve this, now you have to go to the second thing, and then you will achieve, okay, try to get something new, and then you will achieve this. That's why we have burnouts, that's why we have depression, that's why we have the okay retirement thing. But in learning and growing, there is no retirement. You can have the same excitement, same enthusiasm as the first day.
Oh yeah, oh
No
yeah. We have it
retirement, there
every
is no
day.
middle age
We
crisis,
have
there
it
is no
every
burnout in
day.
this.
No, no.
Yes. So
Uh,
this was me in the beginning, that I was asking, like, okay, when, till when? And then he says, till your conscience is clear. And I was like, oh my God, that was my OMG moment.
yes. And that's
Okay,
the very essence there of impeccability.
exactly.
You do whatever you need doing until your conscience is clear, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And this change, this concept changes everything in my life.
Oh
So
yeah, oh yeah,
how I
oh yeah.
understand that, okay, I am trying to be impeccable because my conscience is clear. I did try. Yes,
Yeah.
I was doing things. Okay, I was being thorough. Okay, yes, I was. According to, yes, according to my, yes, for many people it might be boring and okay, not so exciting, but this is the way of impeccability for me.
Yes, 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 yes. So that's why I'm taking a little longer to do the other things that I'm doing, which is just to share, to share from, because when we go live, it goes to Instagram, goes to YouTube, but
Oh
it
yes, a
starts
lot
to
involved.
share on my profile. But then I share it to the group, and I share it to like certain, people who want me to share it to them, to remind them, like Norma, and then I also share it to the page. So that takes a little while to do. Well, normally it's very quick, but today I was looking for that the background image to change it, and that took a little
Oh
longer.
yes.
So
Oh
let me
yes.
just do the sharing quickly, and
Yes, yes,
somebody
yes, yes.
said hello. Somebody said hello, not hello,
Hello.
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 Who says hello? Norma. Hello,
Hello,
Norma. Hello,
Norma.
Norma. Hello, Norma. Ah, I'm glad you're here, Norma. Always, always super
Okay,
glad
so
you're
what
here.
we are doing here,
Brilliant.
we are involved in a huge project of doing capital R reading, the capital R reading of Carlos Castaneda's books about Don Juan. This is what we are doing with
Correct.
the intent, with the capital I intent, to meet Don Juan, to connect with
Yeah,
Don Juan. Not just reading books about him, but to connect with him, to connect with his
correct.
intent,
Correct.
to connect
Yeah,
with his whole philosophy, with the
yeah,
basic intent that
yeah,
how he was doing some things. Yes, he is doing,
yeah.
he's using a lot of mediums which are really interesting for me, by the way. But of course, they are Don Juan is not limited to those mediums only. Don Juan is much bigger than that because his intent, his
Yeah,
energy is much bigger than that. And this is where
yeah,
we want to connect with him. Yes, it's daring that, okay,
yes,
yes, I want to connect with him. I want to meet Don Juan. This is my understanding. And this is, of course, Syl's intent. So this capital R reading is special
yeah,
in many ways. Of course, it is new
yes,
thing. It's a complex thing. It was very popular. It changes the world, of course, the many people's life, because it introduced so many new things into the world and awareness. So it is special in many ways, but it is personally special because
yes,
we are doing this to connect with Don Juan. We want to appreciate Don Juan,
yeah,
not only his mediums. We want to appreciate
right,
him.
right. Exactly. Not just his teachings, but the
Yes,
accomplishment, which is Don Juan. Don
yes,
Juan is an accomplishment. It's very important to
exactly.
understand. Don Juan
Yes,
is an exemplar of moreness. It's not the word Don Juan
absolutely.
uses, my word, but doesn't matter. It's very applicable. Yeah. He is an
Yes,
exemplar of moreness. Now, if I said this about him, if I said it about Don Gennaro, he'd say, yes, absolutely. Gennaro is an exemplar of moreness. Just how there's that humility and that modesty, right? But it's very powerful. It's very powerful. And not only are we doing many things, this is what capital R reading is all about, right? It's about depth,
yes,
about discernment, about looking at things from multiple perspectives, thinking things through to the end, being impeccable. But it's really about extracting all the value that can be extracted, and especially about extracting value and moreness that you don't even know is there, right? You start off and you just get into it, and then you keep going and until you find that moreness, right? And you know after a while from doing this that you can get to it. But what makes Don Juan special is not only is he this exemplar of moreness, and he is teaching Carlos a very specific way of being. He calls it the warrior's way. It is the foundation for what he does, right? And that is very valuable. And that we could say is Don Juan's philosophy. But there's more. So that philosophy is to enable Carlos to do the moreness that Don Juan shows. And I call that Don Juan's cosmology. Why cosmology? Because he's sharing not how the world works, but how the universe works, and all of the complexity and moreness that's involved with how the universe works, even down to a fundamental level of how we are constructed, what we really
yes.
are. And this is very important. So in other words, Don Juan shares how the universe works. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yes. This is so profound.
incredibly
Just to interrupt
powerful.
you here. Good
Right.
morning,
Please.
Christopher Abbott. He
Brilliant.
is here
Brilliant.
before us, even like, okay, yes,
I
I'm
love it.
starting.
I love
Okay,
it.
so yes,
I love it. I love it. Yes,
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 yes.
yes. Good morning, Christopher Abbott. Ah, that's wonderful. I'm nearly done. I'm just sharing to the page, and then it goes. You know, some days it goes quicker than others because, of course, it all depends on how snappy Facebook is. And sometimes
Yes.
Facebook can be a touch lethargic, let's just say. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. What's been on your mind, Christopher Abbott? What have you been thinking about? I know what Norma's been thinking about. She shared very extensive with me, and it was a great treat to hear inside Norma. It's always a great treat. This is what sharing is so magical. Sharing does not seek reward. This is Moreness culture at its essence,
Hearing in
right?
itself reward.
Exactly. It doesn't seek a reward because you do it because it's a good thing to do. End of story, right? Well, you could say it's self-rewarding, but that's why I use that terminology, that phrasing so specifically, that sharing doesn't seek a reward. If you look at, and this is, let me back up. I don't like to not finish my sentences, so let me back up. Because we can say, all right, if we look at what the superiority paradigm is and what the Moreness paradigm is, Moreness culture versus superiority culture. What's the core differences? Well, there are many of them, but one of the most fundamental core differences is that almost absolutely everything, well, I pretty much can say everything in superiority paradigm and superiority culture is contractual. Just take the behavior around you. Take anybody's behavior, your own, and say, why am I doing this? Right? You're expecting to get something out of it. I give my part, I get something. That's contract. Yes? Right, Beena?
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
think of people's typical behaviors. They're doing everything because they expect some sort of payoff, some sort of benefit, some sort of a reward. Now, yes, you could argue sharing, yes, it has its own reward, so that's two. But the difference is that it's contractual is between one party and another. You don't really enter into a contract with yourself. I mean, I guess you can technically do so, but the moment you enter into a contract, you have to have a minimum of at least two. Yes, but when you're sharing, this is an individual thing. It's like when I'm being happy. Why are you being happy? What do you mean, why am I being happy? What the hell kind of question is that? Have you never been happy? Well, if you're happy, then you'll know why. It's a self-evident. It's a self-evident thing, right? There's no expectation from outside of me. Same with sharing. There's no expectation of outside of me. In other words, it's not contractual, right? It's purely internal. I'm in my bubble sharing. Whether you partake of the sharing, find use in the sharing, see it as nonsense, is totally irrelevant to me. I don't care. It makes no difference. Because sharing is a potency. It is a power. It is a magic. It is a wonder. And as Biala says, sharing has a sweetness and wonder and magic all its own. Yeah, very powerful quote from Biala. So yes. I'm making the point, though, not so much about sharing, but about the difference between Moreness culture and superiority culture. When we understand this, wow, no sharing. I mean, no contractualness, no expectations, no demands. Wow. And then in the reverse, I have no obligations either. You know, Syl and Beena sharing is completely free. I do not have to give anything back. No obligations, none. It's rule number one in Moreness culture for friendship. Any kind of relationship. Rule number one, no expectations, no obligations. It's easier said than done, and it may be a bit of an impossible standard, but it doesn't matter. It is to make it clear this difference between superiority paradigm, superiority culture, and Moreness culture. In Moreness culture, this no expectations, no obligations, this is taken very, very seriously. Tell me now, anybody who lives in typical, ordinary, our default culture, superiority paradigm culture, tell me about any kind of action, relationship, interaction, whatever you've had, where expectation and obligation was not in the picture. Yes, always. And so you don't even realize that you have this. And of course, look at relationships and look at when there starts to be a bit of trouble in the relationship. It's when one party feels their expectations and the other party's obligations were not met. That's when you got trouble. Yeah. See, yes. If you want to have a good relationship, have no expectations, have no obligations. Not only feel for yourself that you have no obligations, but know that you do not expect obligations from the other person. Now you've got an incredibly free, pure relationship. Beena and I, we come on Zoom and share and do Moreness, and you know, we do the lives, we do a lot of stuff together. But always, every single day, it is a choice. Yes, we do business together, and there might be a little bit of obligation there, but very short term. If Beena said to me tomorrow, "Hey, Syl, I don't want to do this anymore," you know, okay, not a problem. You know, I mean, if it was something where I needed to find somebody else, she'd do it until I found somebody else. But you know, it's not a problem. Yeah. Exactly, Christopher Abbott. That's one way of looking at it. Christopher Abbott says, it seems like people want other people to be in their place like in inverted commas place, like a caste system. That's hierarchy. That's what superiority paradigm is, right? Know your place, know your place, right? That's it. I want to higher than you, and you must be lower than me, because this is the prime motive, the prime importance, the prime directive of the superiority paradigm. Know your place in the hierarchy. Try and get as high as you can and never be at the bottom. But if you are lower, then be appropriately subservient. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble, right? And when you're on top, then you've got to boss and bully people and exploit them and manipulate them, etc. Take advantage of them. It's just a ridiculous, absurd system. It comes from our primitive animal things. I mean, just go and look at the lions. Everybody wants to be a lion. Not me. Thank you very much. Look at their social system. It is all about this hierarchy and dominance. If you do whatever, you might not even be doing anything. Another lion comes up to you and just, starts giving you smacks and attacking you. Why? Because they want to dominate you and put you lower in the pecking order. What the hell kind of way is that to live? Horrible. Whenever there's they kill an antelope or a buffalo or whatever and they eat, what happens? They all fight over the food. And the hierarchy determines who gets the most. That's where the expression lion's share comes from. The alpha lion gets to eat all the good bits first. What an absurd system. No sharing. And of course, no collaboration. Yeah. And now, and it's all selfish. When that top dog lion is eaten, he's eaten all the good parts, and then the next one comes, and sometimes the ones at the bottom don't get any food. How does this benefit your whole society? Yeah. And also, they don't think, wow, okay, you know what? Couldn't we just go and kill another one and then everybody's got food? No, because it's only about me, 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 me. I'm satisfied. I'm full. I don't care about the rest of you. What an absurd system. It is self-defeating. It is self-defeating. And sorry, Beena, I'll sort of finish my point about the lions. We think of this lions as being this top apex predator. No, they're not. Yeah? There are instances when lions starved and died, the whole pride of lions, right? That they cease to exist. Yeah, it happens. It's part of the thing. The hyenas took over, whatever, a lot of reasons why. But because they didn't have the sensibility of collaboration and that stupid system of theirs, it caused them to die out. Right? The most successful predators in Africa, by a long shot, are the small little African dogs. A fraction of the size of a lion, way smaller than a hyena also. But why? Because they collaborate. When they have a kill, they take it back to the babysitters who are looking after their young and stuff like that. Whereas in lions, oh no, you're on your own. You got to take care of your own babies. It's very difficult. Stupid system. Anyway, that's what we have inherited. This hierarchy, dominance, supremacy of me, ego. I must be the top dog and I don't care about anybody else. In other words, the typical negative understanding of selfishness, which really isn't actually all that selfish, because it's not really in the lion's best interest, right? It's only in the short term. So selfishness really is a synonym for short-sightedness, and that's superiority paradigm. Please, Beena. Thanks for holding your point.
No, I was keen to know more about what Christopher Abbott is saying, that it seemed like that people want to have other people in their place, like caste system.
Right.
I'm not making a connection.
It's just a way. Yeah, Beena, it's just the way Christopher wrote it. You have to read it with understanding the grammars. It can be interpreted two ways. The way it reads at first is to have somebody instead of them, but that's not what he means. He says it seems like people want other people to be to know their place is a better way of saying it, right? To know their station, to know their position, and not to be outside of where they're supposed to be and expected to be. See what I mean? That's know your place. You understand what I mean, Beena?
Yes.
Right. See, he's not saying they want other people to be somewhere instead of them. That's how I read it at first myself. But then when I saw like the caste system, now I understand about hierarchy. In other words, like, hey, you know what? I'm important. Don't you come and think you know more than me. Know your place. You're a nobody. What do you know? And see, it's all about your caste, your importance, or you could say in Also class system, right? Same thing. Class system, caste system. It's all about supposedly knowing your place, and don't get uppity, don't get above yourself, and also don't think that you're wonderful when you're not, etc. And if you don't have all the privileges, well then, but it's an absurd system, because just because you're wealthy and come from a supposedly good family, it doesn't mean that you can't be an idiot. Yeah, I mean, the history is got zillions of examples of these idiot kings and idiot queens and whatever, supposedly got all your royal blood and whatever. What did that matter? Nothing whatsoever, So it's totally ridiculous. And then, of course, if you go back into their history, how did they come to have royal blood? Because somebody out of nowhere, somewhere in their past, decided to do a lot of stuff and steal stuff and, take power and say, okay, now I've got royal blood. It's just, the whole thing is complete hypocrisy and nonsense and total BS. Yeah. Yes, Beena. Sorry. Yes, Norma. Norma says, but ... Sometimes competition can be healthy. Yes, it can be. It all depends how you are competing. If you are competing with the intent to improve, it is fantastically healthy. Yes. That's your intent for the competition. This the intent to improve, the intent to stretch your boundaries, the intent to raise where your best is, right? To move the bar for your best. This is wonderful, because you get leverage through competition, yes. But most people's competing is not about doing their best. In superiority paradigm, competing is only about winning. And it is also about not losing. Superiority paradigm is completely hung up about this. I see people, and when they win, they do this little stupid dance. I won. Childish, how idiotic. When I was kids, we didn't do that with each other. And any kid who tried that would have been in trouble with the rest of the kids. Nobody would play with them. Right? This is a thing that's come about more recently. And it's exceedingly egregious. It's really ridiculous. But also, think about that, right? Now you are lording it over somebody that you've won against. And you say, yeah, look at you. Nah, I won, all this childish stuff, right? But I see adults doing this. But think of this. And I see partners, husband and wife, competing, and they do this with each other. How are you making your loved one feel? You're making them feel horrible. What kind of love is that? What kind of relationship is that? It's pathetic, but they do it because this is what they're supposed to do from superiority culture. What an idiotic system. Yeah. Males have females bring them food. Yeah, that kind of thing. That's what Christopher means about knowing your place, right? You're a female, you're inferior, you must serve me. No, this is so completely anti-Moreness culture. No, Moreness culture respects everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, right? And it doesn't have this nonsense, foolish notion that we're all equal. We're not. This is just right? I mean, Moreness culture is honest. We're not equal. Nobody's equal to anybody else, right?
Of course.
That doesn't mean we are unequal as in a negative thing. We're just different, for heaven's sake. And this is the reality. We are simply different, right? That's it. And you celebrate that difference. If I'm like the way I thought of myself when I was a child, when I first became aware of awareness, I was acutely aware not only of my unawareness, but of my nincompoopery. Well, when you become aware of your nincompoopery, you don't have to get depressed about it. Just do something about it. Just learn. And that's what I did ever since then, right? And life is easy. That's it. When everybody's learning, does it matter where you are on the path of learning? No, because you'll very soon realize the path of learning is like my diagram behind me. Yes? Yeah.
Yes.
Is there any linearity in this diagram behind me? No. You see, there's squares and there's squares behind and behind. And yes, they're linked. But if I'm over here, I'm starting over here, right? And well, I want to get to the center. That's not the end of my learning, because I need to have all of these squares connected. Yeah. Now, do I have to go to every single square? No, because that one has been lit up. But if you light up this one, that light is going to connect to the ones nearby it, right? And all around it, like in your brain, when a node lights up, that lighting up effect is transferred to the nodes around us, which means that you have to light up enough nodes where the light is spread all around. You don't have to go to every single node, but you have to have enough. And then the light connects to everything. And then you get a multiplication effect, an exponential effect, right? And to me, this is what happens literally inside your brain when enlightenment takes place. Yeah? You have this multiplicity of the things, the nodes connecting to the other nodes, and it spreads. But you have to have enough of them. So we can't stop learning, and we can't say, oh, let's say I started on this square over here, and I moved there, and I moved here, and I moved there, and I moved there, and I was like, oh, I progressed on the path of learning. No, sorry. You may be far on that one path there, but there's a zillion paths, and you have to travel them all, which is why we collaborate and share and celebrate with others. Because when I share, I'm sharing my path. When you share your path, I don't care where you're on your path, right? If I've gone down this path and you sharing from this path over here, that's new to me. Yeah. Doesn't matter that you're just starting and I'm ending my path. I'm learning about a new path that I don't know anything about. You as somebody else other than me, you are a new path. You are a new path. See? So there's no, this whole idea of equality and I'm further, that's all hierarchy stuff. Moreness understands there's always more. No matter how much you learn, there's always more. So how do you compare? It's idiocy. It's idiocy. It's idiocy. It's idiocy. Yes. When I'm learning a baby and or a small child, and I'm listening to them with their struggle of whatever they're learning, it may even be something very basic, right? That's like a duh for anybody. But in me, going inside them, hearing them, and really paying attention to their sharing with capital H, hearing, and capital D, discernment, I am learning about their path. It wasn't my path. I didn't start off where exactly that baby was, that small child was, right? Now I learn about how's the thinking, how they're processing, how they're conceiving. And I can see, well, okay, they're starting with this belief or this assumption, and that really blocked them, or this really opened them up. Wow, I'm learning about learning. Fantastic stuff, fantastic stuff, fantastic stuff. See, so all this comparative stuff, throw it out, throw it out, throw it out. It has no place in Moreness culture. And it is extremely debilitating in our lives. The moment we start comparing, well, you know more than me, I don't know anything, and now suddenly I feel like rubbish. Why? Who said you? You're not rubbish. It's a false, artificial belief and feeling that you've gotten simply because of this idiocy that is superiority culture. It is idiocy, idiocy. It is the worst thing possible. It benefits no one, not even those who supposedly get to the top. No. They don't benefit either, because everybody's trying to pull them down and attack them, and they live in constant stress and fear. Look at dictators, right? Look at how fundamentally, profoundly, ridiculously, absurdly, and egregiously insecure they are. They're not happy people. They don't have it all, being the boss, lording it over everybody, as the people think. No, they're just insecure. They do all that stuff to assuage, to calm, to try and get rid of their insecurity. Right? All that pomp and all the stuff that they do to boost themselves. Look how wonderful I am, look how wonderful. And they know it's not true. It's all BS. It's all lies. So, all right, very important, right? Very important, the stuff. Very important, the stuff. So I really want to make this point that superiority paradigm culture is a horrid business. We don't even realize it. It's a madness. It's a madness, absolute madness. But it's a madness if we are honest. We cannot live with. And then it forces us through honesty to seek an alternative. Yeah? So it's a genius system, because the universe cannot give us, life cannot give us, no one can give us awareness. We have to cultivate it for ourselves. So the system is set up where it's broken. It's a broken system. And because it's broken, you can choose to live in a broken system if you want to, but also you can choose to get out of it. It is the optimum for maximizing pure, free choice. At the same time, giving you incentive and encouragement to get out of it, right? Because if you just came and life was basically just a blank screen and with nothing, and you were just in this vacuum, you might never choose anything because you have no pressure to choose. See? We need a bit of pressure to choose. This broken system, this madness that is a superiority paradigm, it's a fantastic pressure and incentive to choose moreness, to choose freedom, to choose alternative. Yeah, very cool. What do you think, Beena?
Yes.
Sorry, I went on a long share there, but this is
No.
so important. It's so important.
Yes, and we have to now go to the capital R reading straight, so that's why I'm
Yes,
saying that.
yes,
So let's
yes. We
continue
shall do
and
that.
share screen.
We shall do that. Right, sharing screen, chapter 11. We're on chapter 11. Very good. Very good indeed. Very good. So share. There we go. There we go. Brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Love it, Christopher Abbott. Love it, love it, love it. Love it, Norma. Love it, Norma. Love you too, Norma. We do. We love you very much.
Well, it's a bit
Oh,
blur for me,
magical.
so please read.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'm just getting the screen set up here. I have to move my little Zoom window because when I share screen, the little Zoom window that shows my icon goes to the right-hand side. And then, when I'm talking, then I'll be looking over here, you see. Not that you see me looking there, but this matters to me. This matters to me. All right, I shall read in a second. There we go. And, I like to set it up so that I can see the comments as they come, right, while the thing up. So Christopher Abbott says, 117 degrees Fahrenheit yesterday here in the Sonoran Desert. Yeah, it's quite amazing. It seems like September, we're getting the highest heat, even though September is technically autumn, fall. Yeah, yeah. Well, I hope you have air conditioning. I hope you have air conditioning, Christopher. I lived in the desert once upon a time. I didn't even have a roof, just a ceiling. So there was no buffer. Oh, it was like living in an oven. I was living in an oven. And, had to keep the windows open for at least some draft. There were a lot of flies about and stuff. So it was very interesting learning to deal with the flies. By the way, yes, just on this topic of flies. Much of it has got to do with your attention. The busier your mind is, the more the flies seem to come to you. Furthermore, if you keep swatting them away, what are you saying to the fly? Here's something valuable. The fly has learned this. Every time a tail is twitching, it knows there's the honeypot, at least the honeypot for the fly, right? So when you wave your hand about, you're telling the fly, this is the equivalent of what's under the tail. Okay, so be cautious. learn discernment, right? Look at things from other things' perspective. When you understand things from the fly's perspective, say, wow, okay, yes, advertising to tell me there's the honeypot. Okay, I don't know if the fly calls it a honeypot, but I'm using a euphemism here. And also, still your mind, still your energy, still your intent. If you're agitated, right, that agitation lets the fly know you've got something valuable that it wants. If you're just boring and like, well, whatever, flies, okay, there's nothing here. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
Your
So at
flies
first
may
the
be
flies
just
were, yeah.
your flies may be just trying to tell you that there is something you need to clean up. Okay.
That may be too. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Norma says useful for picnics and wasps. Yes.
Yeah, they are at
Wasps and bees
service.
and things, they won't attack you of their own accord, right? They'll only do so if you're in the way of something that they need to do, or you've actually threatened them or attacked them in some way. Other than that, they leave you alone. Most people, when they see a bee, they start panicking and they start waving the bee away. Well, now you're attacking the bee. And the bee's like, hey, I was just chilling. I was just flying there, checking you out, seeing what's up. And now you're suddenly trying to kill me. It's like, well, I don't like that. And then they may attack you back. See?
Not always, Syl.
Think it's
I have
perspective
been
shifting.
attacked by bees. No, not always.
All
I
right.
was just chilling. Actually, I was
Yeah.
sleeping, but they do attack.
Okay. All right. All right. There are exceptions. There can be mad bees too in the world.
Yes.
And the bee may
Yes.
mistake you for something. Yes. In general. I'm talking in general. There's always exceptions to everything, right? So yes, in general. In general. I mean, I often get a bee coming around, and in my life, I'm like, oh, hello, bee, and off they go. I was happy to see them. I love bees. They're awesome, you know. Anyway, yeah. Same with spiders. I like them too. They're pretty good. Yeah. All right, let's read. Chapter 11. The last event. Can you read now or not yet?
Not yet. It will come.
All
Sorry,
right,
and
never
then
mind. The last event I recorded in my field notes took place in September 1965. It was the last of Don Juan's teachings. I called it a specific state of non-ordinary reality because it was not the product of any of the plants I'd used before. It seemed that Don Juan elicited it by means of a careful manipulation of cues about himself. This is very key here, right? Because he's using cues in the ordinary sense of the word, but in Way-Of-Impeccability and in Moreness culture, cueing is in our dictionary of power. It is a capital word, in other words. All the words in our dictionary of power are capitalized words because they mean more than the usual. And when we understand cueing, yes, it's fundamentally the same thing. But we have so much cueing in our environment, right? Just through supposed to be and should, for instance, that we do things that we don't even realize, right? We've been cued by society, we've been cued by circumstance, cued by belief, etc. Right? So much cueing happens. We can be cued by others. Somebody comes in and they're in a space and they're a bit aggressive. Immediately you start being defensive. They didn't even do anything to you. They're not even focused on you. Just that vibe of theirs pulls that out of you. Yeah. See, so cueing is very, very influential. But now this is a very deliberate act here, right? But important to pay attention to, though. Right? It seems that Don Juan elicited by means of a careful manipulation of cues about himself. That is to say, he behaved in front of me in so skillful a manner that he created the clear and sustained impression that he was not really himself, but someone impersonating him. As a result, I experienced a profound sense of conflict. I wanted to believe it was Don Juan, and yet I could not be sure of it. The concomitant of the conflict was a conscious terror, so acute that it impaired my health for several weeks. Afterwards, I thought it would have been wise to end my apprenticeship then. I have never been a participant since that time. Yet Don Juan has not ceased to consider me an apprentice. He has regarded my withdrawal only as a necessary period of recapitulation, another step of learning, which may last indefinitely. Since that time, however, he has never expounded on his knowledge. Wow. I wrote the detailed account of my last experience almost a month after it happened, although I had already written copious notes on its salient points on the following day during the hours of great emotional agitation which preceded the highest point of my terror. Why did one Don do this? What's his intent with the power plants? To collapse Carlos's absolute certainty that his worldview is the only worldview and is an accurate worldview. Neither of those are even remotely close. Right? So this is the intent behind this extraordinary action of Don Juan's, because Carlos is extraordinarily obtuse, extraordinarily blocked, extraordinarily bubblyfied. Yes? Yeah. So he has to use extraordinary mechanisms to break through. Why does he go to all this effort? Because of attunement. Carlos came to him via attunement. Whatever attunement brings to us, we take completely and utterly and totally 100% seriously. And we do our utmost to do what is asked of us via intent, no matter how difficult, no matter how extraordinary, and no matter to what lengths we may have to go. Yeah? Very important. And we do it with joy because it is attunement and there's a moreness to it. And we know that. We know it. Why? Because it came via attunement. There's a moreness to it. Friday, 29th October, 1965. On Thursday, 30 September, 1965, I went to see Don Juan. The brief, shallow states of non-ordinary reality had been persisting in spite of my deliberate attempts to end them, or slough them off, as Don Juan had suggested. I felt that my condition was getting worse, for the duration of such states was increasing. I became sharply aware of the noise of airplanes, The sound of their motors going overhead would unavoidably catch my attention and fix it, to the point where I felt I was following the plane as if I were inside it or flying with it. The sensation was very annoying. My inability to shake it off produced a deep anxiety in me. Don Juan, after listening attentively to all the details, concluded that I was suffering from a loss of soul. Now, remember, Carlos grew up Catholic. Yes, and that comes in, it's mentioned here, Don Juan makes a bit of fun of Carlos's Catholic tendencies. So this loss of soul, this is Don Juan utilizing Carlos's terminology. Don Juan has other ways to describe this that are much more accurate and much more profound and actually relate very much to my diagram. You're going to see, Beena, this diagram has an even greater significance later on when we come to Don Juan's cosmology. Very cool diagram, this one behind me. Yeah, it's the default way of impeccability background. Anyway, Don Juan, he concluded that I was suffering from a loss of soul. I told him I had been having these hallucinations ever since the time I had smoked the mushrooms, but he insisted that they were a new development. He said that earlier I had been afraid, and I had just dreamed nonsensical things, but that now I was truly bewitched. You're not getting out of your apprenticeship, Carlos. You're not getting out. You're being pulled back in again. Yeah. I'm trying to think of the word now. It's about motive and intent. Compelling motive. Carlos doesn't have a compelling motive to be in the apprenticeship because he's dense, because he's stupid, because he can't see the value for himself. Yeah. So he needs compelling motive, and Don Juan is providing him with that compelling motive. Now, a compelling motive applies in many ways. I've written quite a few stories, and I've got a whole movie screenplay about compelling motive, yeah, and how it makes a difference. It's powerful stuff. So it's in my dictionary of power, obviously, this understanding of compelling motive. It's very different to motive. Compelling motive and motive or motivation, very different. Carlos does not have that compelling motivation, but he's about to get one now. But that now I was truly bewitched, Don Juan says. The proof was that the noise of the flying airplanes could carry me away. Ordinarily, he said, the noise of a brook or a river can trap a bewitched man who has lost his soul and carry him away to his death. He then asked me to describe all my activities during the time prior to experiencing the hallucinations. I listed all the activities I could remember, and from my account, he deduced the place where I had lost my soul. Wow, very interesting. Don Juan seemed to be overly preoccupied, a state that was quite unusual for him. This naturally increased my apprehension. He said he had no definite idea as to who had trapped my soul, but whoever it was intended without doubt to kill me or make me very ill. Then he gave me precise instructions about a fighting form, a specific bodily position to be maintained while I remained on my beneficial spot. I had to maintain this posture he called a form. I asked him what all that was for and whom I was going to fight. He replied that he was going away to see who had taken my soul and to find out if it was possible to get it back. In the meantime, I was supposed to stay on my spot until his return. The fighting form was actually a precaution, he said, in case something happened during his absence, and it had to be used if I was attacked. It consisted of clapping my calf and thigh of my right leg and stomping my left foot in a kind of a dance I had to do while facing the attacker. Very interesting. He warned me that the form had to be adopted only in moments of extreme crisis. But so long as there was no danger in sight, I could simply sit cross-legged on my spot. Under circumstances of extreme danger, however, he said I could resort to one last means of defense, hurling an object at the enemy. He told me that ordinarily one hurls a power object, but since I did not possess any, I was forced to use any small rock that could fit in the palm of my right hand, a rock I could hold by pressing it against my palm with my thumb. He said that such a technique should be used only if one was indisputably in danger of losing one's life. The hurling of the object had to be accompanied by a war cry, a ki, a yell that had the property of directing the object to its mark. He emphatically recommended that I be careful and deliberate about the outcry and not use it at random, but only under severe conditions of seriousness. True medicine. Which part is the true medicine, Christopher Abbott? The leveraging of Carlos's worldview, or the fighting stance, or which part are you responding to? I'm not quite sure. Yeah, this is now all part of the sorcery side of things, which, as we'll see later, becomes completely non-relevant. But it is all simply because it is necessary to leverage Carlos. Right? So understand this. All of this is to collapse Carlos's worldview. Yes, all of it. Right? All of it. Very important. I asked what he meant by severe conditions of seriousness. He said that the outcry or war cry was something that remained with a man for the duration of his life. Thus, it had to be good from the very beginning. Yeah, you got to put your all into it. Otherwise, it's not going to have. It's about intent, in other words, right? And intent, really, if you want your intent to truly be there, you have to put everything you have into your intent. And the only way to start it correctly was by holding back one's natural fear and haste until one was absolutely filled with power. Yeah, and I talk about the primacy, the power, the magic, the awesome, the importance of patience. Yeah, and how incredibly valuable and useful patience is. And look here at this exact instance. Yes, you're under threat. You're facing severe threat. Our instinct is to just respond as quickly as possible. Yeah, but that's a waste, right? In a case like this, right? So he said you got to, right, and the only way to start it correctly, this is about your cry of power now, was by holding back one's natural fear and haste until one was absolutely filled with power. That requires patience. It requires discipline. It requires forbearance. But this is how we get to timing, see? It's that patience, discipline, forbearance, timing, the attributes of a warrior. There are two more, but they're not pertinent here now. But if you have that patience, discipline, forbearance, you can do that. I usually throw tolerance in there as well, because you need to be able to tolerate things too, which comes between discipline and forbearance, maybe between patience and discipline, right? Tolerance, very good here. Especially in our day-to-day lives, it's not quite that extreme. But you need to let it build. If you expend that power too quickly, it's like, you don't have the range to get there. The power's not strong enough to get there. It's just completely wasted. So you have to hold it back. You have to hold it back, right? Very important. Important. And that takes character. That's why Way-Of-Impeccability is so important. Right? He said these were the conditions of seriousness needed to launch the yell. I asked him to explain about the power that was supposed to fill one before the outcry. He said that was something that ran through the body coming from the ground where one stood. It was a kind of power that emanated from the beneficial spot, to be exact. It was a force that pushed the yell out. If such a force was properly managed, the battle cry would be perfect. I asked him again if he thought something was going to happen to me. He said he knew nothing about it and admonished me dramatically to stay glued to my spot for as long as it was necessary. Discipline. Because that was the only protection I had against anything that might happen. I began to feel frightened. I begged him to be more specific. He said all he knew was that I should not move under any circumstances. I was not to go into the house or into the bush. Above all, he said, I should not utter a single word, not even to him. He said I could sing my Mescalito songs if I became too frightened. And then he added that I knew already too much about these matters to have to be warned like a child about the importance of doing everything correctly. His admonitions produced a state of profound anguish in me. Oh, true medicine, getting his soul back. That's what, yes. Now, in this is a particular circumstance that came about via attunement. And Don Juan is following this path as it is appropriate. However, if Carlos was not so obtuse and so bubblyfied and so locked in his worldview, none of this would be necessary, right? So it's just a doing of Carlos. Right? It's a function of Carlos. Yes. Carlito always needs his lullaby. Yes, I think somewhere he is called Carlito. And I'm not sure if it's by, I think it's Donganaro calls him Carlito, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, little Carlito. That's right. That's right. Where he loses his car. And they help him look for his car under the rocks and everywhere. That's right. He calls him Carlito there. Yeah, little Carlito. Yeah. Anyway, his admonitions produced a state of profound anguish in me. I was sure he was expecting something to happen. I asked him why he recommended that I sing the Mescalito songs and what he believed was going to frighten me. He laughed and said I might become afraid of being alone. He knows Carlos too well. He knows Carlos is fundamentally insecure because Carlos is a very typical product of the superiority paradigm and he's an adherent of it, never mind just a product. He's not a BMN, but he's still very much. And insecurity and superiority paradigm go hand in hand, right? That's what it's all about. It's all about insecurity. So he says, I might become afraid of being alone. He knows Carlos. He walked into the house and closed the door behind him. I looked at my watch. It was 7 p.m. I sat quietly for a long time. There were no sounds coming from Don Juan's room. Everything was quiet. It was windy. I thought of making a dash for my car to get my windbreaker, but I did not dare to go against Don Juan's advice. I was not sleepy, but tired. The cold wind made it impossible for me to rest. 4 hours later, I heard Don Juan walking around the house. I thought he might have left through the back to urinate in the bushes. Then he called me loudly. Hey boy, I need you here, he said. I nearly got up to go to him. It was his voice, but not his tone, or his usual words. Don Juan had never called me, hey boy, and he never would either. So I stayed where I was. A chill went up my back. He began to yell again using the same or a similar phrase. Now I see somebody impersonating him who's a superiority paradigm narcissist. They automatically assume that Don Juan would use such superiority language because Carlos is apprentice, Don Juan is the teacher. It's like, duh, they can't think in Moreness terms, so they give themselves away. It's like very obvious, right? Duh, yeah. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Make sense, Beena? A little bit of capital R discernment there, right? To think, get inside the thinking of others. You muted, Beena? Maybe Beena had to step away. All right. Or she's entranced by the story. I'll continue reading. He began to yell again using the same or similar phrase. I heard him walking around the back of his house. He stumbled on a wood pile as if he did not know it was there. Then he came to the porch and sat next to the door with his back against the wall. He seemed heavier than usual. His movements were not slow or clumsy, just heavier. He plunked down on the floor instead of sliding nimbly as he usually does. Besides, that was not his spot, and Don Juan would never, under any circumstances, sit anywhere else. Yeah. Is there fear involved here? Yes, absolutely, Norma. Absolutely, absolutely. Lots of fear. The fear is here now to leverage Carlos, right? To shift him out of his bubble. So very important. The fear is very important point here, and how to deal with fear too. Yeah. Don Juan would never, under any circumstances, sit anywhere else. Then he talked to me again. He asked me why I refused to come when he needed me. He talked loudly. I did not want to look at him, and yet I had a compulsive urge to watch him. He began to swing slightly from side to side. I changed my position, adopting the fighting form he had taught me, and turned to face him. My muscles were stiff and strangely tense. Now look at Carlos's fundamental flaw of conceptionality. He has clues, clear, indisputable clues, proof that this is not Don Juan. Yet he cannot shake the visuality of the appearance that is Don Juan and that the voice sounds similar. So he still thinks of him as Don Juan, even though he knows it's not. Yeah. If he had any sense, he wouldn't say, I turned to face him, Don Juan. I turned to face the imposter. Right? He would start calling this an imposter, not Don Juan, who's now seemingly behaving differently. Shift your thinking, Carlos. But in Carlos's limited worldview, this cannot be that it is somebody else. It's an impossibility. See, so he's too limited by his idea of what's possible. His worldview is too narrow. Interesting question, Norma. I'm curious why you asked. Why you ask about the fear. Is there fear involved here? I don't quite understand. I mean, the answer is yes. It's very clearly yes. But I think there's more to your question, I suspect. Yeah. I changed my position. Adopting the fighting form he had taught me. I turned to face him. Turned to face the imposter. My muscles were stiff and strangely tense. I do not know what prompted me to adopt the fighting form, but perhaps it was because I believed Don Juan was deliberately trying to scare me by creating the impression that the person I saw was not really himself. Again, you see how this is superiority paradigm. Always out to get you and trick you and fool you, and it's always more complicated than the reality. The reality is just there's an imposter. End of story. Anyway, but not really himself. I felt he was very careful about doing the unaccustomed in order to establish doubt in my mind. I was afraid, but still I felt I was above it all because I was actually taking stock of and analyzing the entire sequence. At that point, Don Juan got up. His motions were utterly unfamiliar. He brought his arms in front of his body and pushed himself up, lifting his backside first. Then he grabbed the door and straightened out the top part of his body. I was amazed about how deeply familiar I was with his movements, and what an awesome feeling he had created by letting me see a Don Juan who did not move like Don Juan. He took a couple of steps toward me. He held the lower part of his back with both hands as if he were trying to straighten up, or as if he was in pain. He whined and puffed. His nose seemed to be stuffed up. He said he was going to take me with him and ordered me to get up and follow him. He walked towards the west side of the house. I shifted my position to face him. He turned to me. I did not move from my spot. I was glued to it. He bellowed, "Hey, boy! I told you to come with me. If you don't come, I'll drag you." He walked towards me. I began beating my calf and thigh and dancing fast. He got to the edge of the porch in front of me and nearly touched me. Frantically, I prepared my body to adopt the hurling position, but he changed directions and moved away from me, towards the bushes to my left. At one point, as he was walking away, he turned suddenly, but I was facing him. He went out of sight. I retained the fighting posture for a while longer, but as I did not see him anymore, I sat cross-legged again with my back to the rock. By then, I was really frightened. I wanted to run away, yet that thought terrified me even more. I felt I would have been completely at his mercy if he had caught me on the way to my car. I began to sing the piety songs I knew, but somehow I felt they were impotent here. They served only as a pacifier, yet they soothed me. I sang them over and over. About 2:45 a.m., I heard a noise inside the house. I immediately changed my position. The door was flung open and Don Juan stumbled out. Wow. He was gasping and holding his throat. He knelt in front of me and moaned. He asked me in a high, whining voice to come and help him. Then he bellowed again and ordered me to come. He made gargling sounds. He pleaded with me to come and help him because something was choking him. He crawled on his hands and knees until he was perhaps 4 feet away. He extended his hands to me. He said, "Come here." Then he got up. His arms were extended towards me. He seemed ready to grab me. I stomped my foot on the ground and clapped my calf and thigh. I was beside myself with fear. Here's your fear, Norma. Here's your fear. Carlos is getting a thorough scaring. Very, very thorough. He stopped and walked to the side of the house and into the bushes. I shifted my position to face him. Then I sat down again. I did not want to sing anymore. My energy seemed to be waning. My entire body ached. All my muscles were stiff and painfully contracted. I did not know what to think. I could not make up my mind whether to be angry at Don Juan or not. I thought of jumping him, but somehow I knew he would have cut me down like a bug. I really wanted to cry. I say, poor Carlos, you gotta feel for him a bit here. I experienced a profound despair. The thought that Don Juan was going all the way out to frighten me made me feel like weeping. Look at his ego here. It's just ego. Yeah. Yeah. Stamping feet obviously help. Yes. And in that particular way, Norma, right? So he stomps with the left foot and he claps the calf and the thigh of the right hand, right? So it's a dual motion. Stomp, stomp, clap, clap, stomp, right? Like a dance, right? Yes. Helps inordinately. Yeah. Very powerful. Simple things sometimes can make a difference. But look at this despair that Don Juan is doing this to him. If it was somebody else who like, okay, I'm ready to find, but no, you wouldn't have that same despair and you wouldn't weep. Right? But it's your ego. I'm not special to you, Don Juan. How can you do this to me? Blah, 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 right? And poor baby stuff. I felt like weeping and made me feel like weeping. I was incapable of finding a reason for this tremendous display of histrionics. His movements were so artful that I became confused. It was not as if he was trying to move like a woman. It was as if a woman were trying to move like Don Juan. Carlos, break your worldview for heaven's sake. Be open to things that are outside what you consider possible. Yeah, yeah. Or at least he's starting to discern. This is why discernment is so important, because it's needed very often. Wow, must try it sometime. Yes, Norma. Yes, Norma. Very important. Very important. Note well though. Don Juan also said that yes, I mean I'm assuming you could use this position in dire circumstances in any places, but you also want to have that ability to find your power spot, right? To see the energies of the world. It's not an easy thing to do, right? Seeing again, to perceive your energy spot doesn't have to be visual. You can feel it. Yeah, and a lot of people have that. You got a favorite spot. You got a favorite place, right? And it's usually because that's a place of power for you. Yeah. Very interesting. It was as if a woman was trying to move like Don Juan. I had the impression that she was trying hang on. I had the impression that she was really trying to walk and move with Don Juan's deliberation, but was too heavy and did not have the nimbleness of Don Juan. Very, very, very small little point here, that she was trying to move with Don Juan's deliberation. It's a throwaway comment that Carlos doesn't even realize how significant it is. Yeah. Don Juan does everything deliberately. Don Juan practices deliberate living. Doesn't say it in those terms, doesn't say that word, but Carlos says casually, just mentioned it here, right? Deliberate living is way of impeccability. It's a toolbox for deliberate living. It is crucial, it is essential to live deliberately. Yeah, very big deal. She was really trying to walk and move with Don Juan's deliberation. Now, I would have capitalized deliberation there, because for Don Juan, it is a capitalized term. But was too heavy and did not have the nimbleness of Don Juan. Whoever was in front of me created the impression of being a younger, heavy woman trying to imitate the slow movements of an agile old man. The slow movements of an agile old man. Very interesting. These thoughts threw me into a state of panic. A cricket began to call loudly, very close to me. I noticed the richness of its tone. I fancied it to have a baritone voice. The call started to fade away. Suddenly, my whole body jerked. I assumed the fighting position again and faced the direction from which the cricket's call had come. The sound was taking me away. It had begun to tap me before I realized it was only cricket-like. The sound got closer again. It became terribly loud. I started to sing my peyote songs louder and louder. Suddenly, the cricket stopped. I immediately sat down, but kept on singing. A moment later, I saw the shape of a man running towards me from the direction opposite to that of the cricket's call. I clapped my hands on my thigh and coughed and stomped vigorously, frantically. The shape went by very fast, almost touching me. It looked like a dog. I experienced so dreadful a fear that I was numb. I cannot recollect anything else I felt or thought. The morning dew was refreshing. I felt better. Whatever the phenomenon was, it seemed to have withdrawn. It was 5:48 a.m. when Don Juan opened the door quietly and came out. He stretched his arms, yawning, and glanced at me. He took 2 steps towards me, prolonging his yawning. I saw his eyes looking through half-closed eyelids. I jumped up. I knew then that whoever or whatever was in front of me was not Don Juan. Finally, he makes the shift. They're like, man, how long? How many smacks across the head do you have to get? Finally, I knew then that whoever or whatever was in front of me was not Don Juan. I took a small, sharp edge from the ground. It was next to my right hand. I did not look at it. I just held it by pressing my thumb against my extended fingers. I adopted the form Don Juan had taught me. I felt a strange vigor filling me in a matter of seconds. Then I yelled and hurled the rock at him. I thought it was a magnificent outcry. At that moment, I did not care whether I lived or died. Wonderful. I felt the cry was awesome in its potency. It was piercing and prolonged, and it actually directed my aim. The figure in front wobbled and shrieked and staggered to the side of the house and into the bushes again. It took me hours to calm down. I could not sit anymore. I kept on trotting on the same place. I had to breathe through my mouth to take in enough air. When power comes, it is incredibly invigorating. And in the true sense of that word, vigor. Yes, invigorating. The word isn't there for nothing. Very powerful, right? So power is extremely invigorating. Someone once I shared Way-Of-Impeccability, and they really got to a cathartic point in their life where they cleared up things. They were so invigorated they couldn't sleep for 3 days. Yeah, the sad part of it is that they never understood about habits, and their ego was so large that even though they had this massive breakthrough, they still kept on believing in their own supremacy of their ego, and they couldn't start from scratch and say, I need to throw all my previous stuff away and learn again. And basically they ended up in a very sad place. They were consumed by their self-importance. They lost their job, lost everything. Very sad, very, very sad. Yeah. And because they never wanted to commit to the learning, despite us going through that profound incident. Yeah, they didn't want to then start and do Way-Of-Impeccability properly and thoroughly, because they weren't doing the whole program. It was just me sharing. Basically, it was Way-Of-Impeccability therapy, really, right? Very sad, very, very sad, very wasteful too. But you know, opportunity comes. Nobody can give you what you need. You have to grasp it. You have to take it, like this person, this individual, right? They had the opportunity. They had clear proof of the value of the Moreness, but they could not get their ego to say, I need to learn from somebody else. They were too caught up in the superiority paradigm. Now, of course, in Moreness culture, you don't learn from me. I share and you learn. That's it. There's no learning from me. But that was their thinking at the time, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't put themselves in this lower position. Superiority paradigm can kill you, which it did for this person, right? I mean, actually, they may literally be dead. It's quite a high possibility. But, you know, regardless, psychologically, they gone. Yeah. Very sad story, but also one to learn from. At 11 a.m., Don Juan came out again. I was going to jump up, but the movements were his. He went directly to his spot and sat down in his usual familiar way. He looked at me and smiled. It was Don Juan. Oh, yeah. I'm glad for Carlos. I went to him, and instead of being angry, I kissed his hand. A very Catholic thing to do. I really believed then that he had not acted to create a dramatic effect, but that someone had impersonated him to cause me harm or to kill me. At this stage, Carlos, you should be asking the obvious question, which is, what is the obvious question here? What's the anomaly here? Beena, have you been following, or did you have to go and take care of something?
No. I'm listening. Continuously listening.
So what is the obvious anomaly? The obvious logical anomaly? Yes. How did this thing start? Someone came out, Don Juan, supposedly, came out of Don Juan's room, right?
Yes.
Isn't that the obvious question now? The obvious unanswered question. How?
Obvious.
How did this person come out of Don Juan's room? Was Don Juan sleeping so soundly that they didn't hear the person coming through the back and then coming out through the front door? Did Don Juan
this
not hear the
question,
person
okay,
stumbling over the woodpile?
this question,
Where was Don
okay,
Juan?
yeah, this question can be, of course, obvious, very logical and very obvious, but in this context where everything is so anomalous and unusual, then you will be like, oh,
Right,
oh my
right,
God,
right.
okay,
But I mean now in at this moment, before it
yes,
could have been that Don Juan left through the back door and didn't say anything to Carlos, which would have been a bit anomalous, but okay, it's possible. But now that Carlos, that Don Juan came back out there, right? I mean, now to me it's like, hey, where were you all night? You know, did you go out and come back and only
yes,
wake up now? You see what I mean? It still needs to be asked. It still needs to be asked, right? Right.
yes,
But the movements were his. He went directly to his spot and sat down in his usual familiar way. He looked at me and smiled. He was Don Juan. I went to him, and instead of being angry, I kissed his hand. I really believed then that he had not acted to create a dramatic effect, but that someone had impersonated him to cause me harm or to kill me. The conversation began with speculations about the identity of a female person who had allegedly taken my soul. Then Don Juan asked me to tell him about every detail of my experience. I narrated the whole sequence of events in a very deliberate manner. He laughed all the way as if it were a joke. Well, from Don Juan's perspective, it is. But anyway, when I finished, he said, "You did fine. You won the battle for your soul. But this matter is more serious than I thought. Your life wasn't worth two hoots last night. It is fortunate you learned something in the past. Had you not had a little training, you would be dead by now. Because whoever you saw last night meant to finish you off. How is it possible, Don Juan, that she could take your form? Very simple. She is a Diablera and has a good helper on the other side. Uh, you will hear about this other side, this kind of sorcery world where you can draw upon powers and stuff. It's a
hmm.
whole tangled mess, but anyway. But she was too good in assuming my likeness. But she was not too good in assuming my likeness, and you caught on to a trick. Is a helper on the other side the same as an ally? No. A helper is an aid to a Diablero. A helper is a spirit that lives on the other side of the world and helps a Diablero to cause sickness and pain. Helps him to kill. Superiority paradigm stuff, all of this stuff. Yeah. Can a Diablero also have an ally, Don Juan? It is the Diableros who have the allies. But before a Diablero can tame an ally, he usually has a helper to aid him in his tasks. How about the woman who took your form, Don Juan? Does she have only a helper and not an ally? I don't know whether she has an ally or not. Some people do not like the power of an ally and prefer a helper. To tame an ally is hard work. It is easier to get a helper from the other side. And BMNs, which, this whole logic, this is all BMN stuff taken to the extreme. They don't like work, yeah, so they try and avoid it whenever possible. They don't think of making extra effort. They want the shortcuts always, the easiest, simplest way. At least they think it's the easiest, but it's not really. Shortcuts typically cost more in the long run. Right? Do you think I could get a helper? To know that, you have to learn much more. We are again at the beginning. See what I was saying earlier about that person that I knew, right? And they did not want to start again at the beginning. And it devastated them. I mean, really, literally devastated them. Very sad, very, very sad story. Simply because their ego could not say, I have to start at the beginning. We have to do this time and time again. As a matter of fact, part of Way-Of-Impeccability, it is recommended that just every now and then, for no particular reason, throw out everything you know and put it all back carefully, right? And see what is useful and valuable. You'll be quite surprised. And next time you do a wardrobe clearing, right? Like, okay, it's sort of a very much a first world thing, but right, and I realize that not everybody is in this position. But one of the first world problems that people have is that their wardrobe gets too full, and then they have to start doing a culling, a purging, right? And they pull stuff from the wardrobe and donate it to goodwill or charity or something like that, right? Or have a yard sale and try and sell it. But typically they just donate it. Now, when doing this from a Moreness culture point of view, we leverage this into something else. First of all, I say, and this is participants have been literally in the situation, including Beena. Beena started with her bangle collection. where she had a zillion bangles. I don't know, like 100 or 1,000 or some crazy number of bangles, right? And Beena said, well, I've got too many. I need to get rid of it. I said, first of all, Beena, practice association management. Every bangle you throw out, don't throw away the bangle, but throw away, okay, this is my impatience. This is my irritation. This is my annoyance. This is my nasty comments. This is my upsetness at my friends, whatever it is, right? And use it as an associative ritual of cleansing, of purging, right? But then we go further, particularly with those who were clearing their wardrobes and donating it. I said, don't pick the things from your wardrobe. Take it all and go and put it on the front yard, right? Or wherever the Goodwill is going to come and pick it up. Take your entire wardrobe and put it there. Yes, throw it all out. Commit to throwing it all out. Once you've done that, right, it's clear now. So you've thrown it all away. Now go back to that pile and see what you want to keep. Yeah. Once it's thrown away, or like I would, even if you really want to take this very seriously, donate it all to Goodwill and then go back to Goodwill and repurchase the things that you want. You're only going to do that about things that really matter to you. Yes. Right, Beena?
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to do this, right? Would you have bought any of your bangles back?
Nope.
Oh, not the one. Not the one. Exactly. Not the one. So now you're going to see when you throw your entire wardrobe out, you're going to say, wow, is it really worth it to me to pay this price to get this back? You know, it's used. I've had fun in it. Okay, there may be one that's like really a favorite that's really important. But, you know, once you've already thrown it away, that importance shifts dramatically. Thank you. Yeah. And getting scary, says Norma. And Christopher Abbott says about this, very Socratic. In a way, yes. In a way, yes. Yes, very much so. But it is an incredibly powerful technique because there's a very deep understanding about motivation and association. Once you've made the commitment to throw it away, importance goes away. Mostly you're going to say, okay, I'm quite fine without it. I really thought I wouldn't be, but now that I'm actually experiencing, I've already donated it. It's gone. The truck is gone. Now I have to go and buy it back. Too much hassle. I'll go shopping for new stuff instead. Much more fun, right? Once you committed to throwing it away and you do the throwing away, you actually do it, then your whole perspective changes. And that's the key point here. This is about shifting your perspective. Now you can start fresh, but you have to actually throw it all away. You have to commit. You have to not just put it in the garbage can, but you have to empty the garbage can and have the truck drive it away. No take backsies, right? You have to have that commitment and actually do it. Actually do it. Then you can start fresh. If you do this with your ideologies, your beliefs, your importances, your shoulds, your supposed tos, your must be's, all of the stuff, throw it all out. Throw away what is important to you and then put it back carefully. You are going to be astonished at how little of it is actually truly important. Yeah, particularly the ego and all things related to ego. Man, what a relief to have thrown it out. Oh my God. I didn't realize it was putting so much pressure on me. Very, 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 very powerful technique. Yes, very, very powerful. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Drin, says Norma. Yes. Or give it away. Exactly. Right, right. You know, donate it. But same thing, right? My point is to get rid of it. It's no longer yours. You cannot take it back. You have to go and make an effort to get it back. That's important. You have to throw it away where you can't easily take it back. We have to make effort to put it back. And when you have to make effort to put it back, you now reevaluate its importance. And that's important, right? Had this person that I was talking about, who came to that profound cathartic moment in their life that was so energizing they couldn't sleep for 3 days, had they realized, and well, I explained it to them. I did. I told them all about this, and the offer was open. They could have done Way-Of-Impeccability. You know, they could have done it no charge, etc. Had they taken me up on that offer, they would not have ended up in that. Well, they ended up in worldview collapse, but they didn't have anything to replace it with, and they just get further and further and further into madness, and it was completely life destroying, right? Literally life destroying. Yeah, very, very sad story, right, Beena? You're familiar with the story. It's horrible. It's really horrible. And all for what? All because you don't want to say, hey, you know what? I need to start again and learn. just ego, just pure ridiculous ego. And then, of course, you know, we had contact from them when they were fully immersed in this madness. Everything was everybody else's fault. All their troubles, all their things, everything was everybody else's fault. None of it was their own. Yeah. Yeah. It's really, really sad. Really, really sad. You know. So don't be that person, people. Don't be that person. Don't be that person. It's a scary, scary, horrible story. You know, actually, I almost wish that I have it recorded. You know, the whole history of it, that I could show it. That we not just have to. Oh, well, I'm telling a story. I mean, it could be nonsense, right? You don't know it's really true, but I wish I could show you that, yeah, that you can really see it as fact for yourself. But we've all probably experienced something similar from others in some way or not. People who cause themselves very massive trouble because of stubbornness and pride and ego and all sorts of silly foolishness, right? That's what foolishness is. Ruining your life for no good reason. Ruining your life for no good reason, or causing trouble for yourself for no good reason. That's the definition of foolishness. Yeah, Beena, comments?
Yes. Okay. This whole experience here with Carlos, and kind of like a testing thing, and his understanding.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, I was thinking that okay, you were again a bit harsh with him, that because not
Thank
trying to
you.
expect
Anything.
But yes, he was not trying to expect anything and assume
that's your
anything.
beautifulness. That's your beautifulness as a person.
Like
You and
because
Norma, you share this beauty. It's so
he's
magical.
doing a wonderful job to actually just give you real insight that okay, that not looking at things from this eyes with awareness.
Correct. It's a gift from Carlos. Carlos is oblivion, is a gift. Yes, Peter, keep going.
Yeah. So excuse me. So this is actually very helpful, and also Don Juan's. I think that okay, Don Juan is also being tested because he doesn't choose Carlos.
Correct.
Because he says that it just happened. I can't do anything about it. So now Don Juan is also being tested that okay, yes, how impeccable he is when it comes to that he has to do things.
Precisely. It was impeccability that was under attack. Yes. Nothing else. Yes, exactly. You might say there was physicalness and all that, but it was impeccability that was in question. If Carlos was impeccable in this case, so yes, I give Carlos a hard time for being a knucklehead. Regardless, now I will give Carlos some the due credit here.
Thank you.
Regardless of his knuckleheadedness, regardless of his foolishness, regardless of his lack of awareness, of not putting the doors together, regardless of the stuckness of his bubble, in this instance, this encounter, this event, Carlos was impeccable. And therefore, he survived. This was actually, and we'll see later, this was a very, very real test from the universe. Carlos could very literally and very easily have died if he was not impeccable.
Wow.
Absolutely. And Don Juan is aware of this. And Don Juan's impeccability allows this test to happen.
Wow.
When we are dealing with real stuff, real power, real life, realness, you have to be willing to put your life on the line. Otherwise, you're not really serious.
Oh.
Otherwise, you're not really serious. Yeah.
Okay, I had no idea
your
that
impeccability has to be so important to you that you are willing to risk your life for it. Based on your impeccability, you're willing to say, I trust my impeccability implicitly. And if it has to be where all that I have is my impeccability, I'm willing to take that chance because I know what impeccability is. I have capital P, trust in my impeccability. You have to. Otherwise, your impeccability is meaningless, right, Beena?
Yes.
How do you know your impeccability is for real if you're not willing to risk it? You have to have that knowledge. You have to have that knowledge.
Yes.
I have not specifically deliberately chosen to put my life at risk, but through impeccability. It has many times been at risk, and it is impeccability that pulled me through. So I'm not saying this as a theoretical idea. I'm saying it from very, very real experience. Yes.
Yes.
Being out in the desert, right? Living there in that absolute middle of nowhere with no resources, zero, no car, no phone, no nothing. Yeah, nearest town was 80 miles away.
Oh.
Could easily have died just walking to our garden where the well was, right? Just that walk required impeccability. I twisted my ankle on those rocks, because very big round rocks, right? Like about this size typically, you know, and smaller, and you could easily step on one and twist it. Very easy if you're not paying attention, right? It's very tricky. You had to kind of pick your way. You couldn't walk in a straight line. You had to place each foot deliberately. You have to place each foot deliberately. You have to have impeccability. You can't say, this is I'll just whatever. No, you have to make sure you took water with you and all stuff like this, right? Simple things, simple survival things, but they required impeccability, especially if you didn't grow up with that, right? You're not trained to do it. When we were living on the street, impeccability, same thing. You know, easily died.
Yes.
Many other circumstances too, but still.
Oh, yes.
Not just physical danger. Sometimes it's spiritual danger. Sorry, carry on, Beena.
No, I was keen to share that I personally feel that by doing acting exactly like the way he does, Carlos, because he was not limiting Don Juan, even in his own perception, that okay, yes, this is not Don Juan, but still there is a chances that he can be. So I think that
correct. He doesn't know for sure one way or the other.
Yes, right? It is like, okay, even if you are like, okay, the logic says that, okay, this is no, it can't be, but it's still his understanding of Don Juan was giving him margin that, yes, okay, this is very unlikely, but still I cannot limit Don Juan into anything. But yes, he can.
Right.
So that is something I really appreciate.
Yeah, I admire too. And this is why Carlos came to be where he is. The universe put him in this unique situation. Because despite all the surfable bubble stuff, if you look at Carlos through the eyes of capital P perception, via capital H hearing, if you hear Carlos, if you use Moreness perspective to see Carlos's Moreness, you see at the very root, past his ego, past all these onion layers of nonsense, at the very bottom, there's a profound sobriety.
Yes.
That sobriety, right, caused him to recognize and understand Don Juan's power, Don Juan's Moreness. Yeah. And he survived. Why? Because that innate sobriety caused him to trust Don Juan 100%. Don Juan said to him, stay on the spot, don't move. And he believed Don Juan. There's no objective reason for him to believe this. It's pure trust that Don Juan is saying is valid. Pure trust. But his sobriety recognizes that in this instance, you are basing your trust on everything that Don Juan has done before. Don Juan has consistently acted from a point of sobriety himself. He has consistently been supremely sensible. He has consistently acted with integrity and impeccability. And his sobriety recognized Don Juan's sobriety. And only because of that did he stay on that spot. He trusted Don Juan, capital T, trust, right? And this is why impeccability and trust go together. See, the one led to the other. Very, very powerful. Norma says, wow, I don't think I could put my life on the line. It is irresponsible in a way. It is if you're going and doing it willy-nilly. That's why I said, I've had these tests, but I didn't go out and seek it because that would be irresponsible. Yes, Norma. But it happened, and I'm thankful that it happened. At the time, I mean, I would prefer that it hadn't, but I can see now the value of it, right? It's sometimes necessary that we have this conclusive proof that our impeccability is real. It's not an idea, especially when you're in my situation like me, where you suffer from excessive humility and modesty. You need to have this. You need to have this, right? Because I so undervalued my impeccability. I never All my life I lived impeccably, but I never thought I was impeccable until very late in my life. Because my humility and my modesty would not allow me to think that. It didn't even allow me to realize that I'd created this profound, complex, cohesive philosophy and psychology long before I started reading any of this stuff. Right? I was just reading adventure stories, right? While I was creating all this. All my reading as a boy, I read at least one book a day. Yeah? But I only started reading kind of serious stuff towards the end of my school life, right? But in the meantime, I was very much working on creating my philosophy, working on creating my psychology. But I never thought that's what I was doing because I didn't have the ego to do so. And I had way too much modesty to even consider that. Luckily, I was in a bubble. That's why that private side and social side was so inordinately helpful to me. If somebody had asked me, hey, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? If they'd asked me and I started to explain, I guarantee you the typical comment would be, what the hell are you thinking? This kind of crazy stuff. What's the matter with you? And that may have killed it right there. I've seen it happen to others. I would like to think that it would not have killed it for me, but may certainly have given me pause or doubt. But because I was in my bubble, I never questioned what I was doing. I just did it. It just seemed dirt to me. It was just like obvious, logical. You just follow through, you just keep going. And I just was figuring stuff out. But had I shared it, I would have met with negativity, even if it was sensible. People didn't want others to be more sensible than them, so they would have made an effort to shut it down. Others in the superiority paradigm do not want you to be more sensible than them, because now it makes you look bad by comparison. Comparative mindset. What a horrible, horrible, horrible disease. This comparing always. Horrible disease. Yeah. It always messes things up, and you don't want anybody to be better than you, look more, be sensible more. Very sad situation. You put your life on the line when getting on the freeway. Absolutely, absolutely. And Christopher, this is something I take very, very seriously. I drive very, very deliberately, always, every single time I get in the car. It is the most dangerous thing we can do. Not can do or do, right? On a regular basis. People are worried about, oh, I went to the ocean, but I didn't swim because I was worried about sharks. Sharks kill on average 6 people a year. 6 on average. Oh. This has been a statistics that's been around for a long time. I became aware of this way, way back in my teenage years, and it always stuck with me. Seriously, people, you're so terrified of sharks, and 6 people a year die from shark attacks. Many more get bitten, yes, but it's still not a huge number, but only 6 die. Go look at how many people die from lightning, also very low, right? Or whatever other stuff, or, being eaten by lions. That's probably less than the sharks even, right? More people get killed by hippopotami, yeah, but nonetheless. My point is, the things that we're afraid of, the actuality of it is very, very small. How many people die from car accidents? Probably 6 a minute.
Yes.
Yeah. And where do they typically get into accidents? Close to home.
Wow.
Close to home. Yeah. Most accidents occur like within a mile or 2 from your home. Why? Because people are less vigilant. Remember that story with Douglas Bader? The fighter pilot story?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Where he would follow the pilots back home, right? And he was just in his single, and they were multiple, right? And they'd come and they'd had a raid or whatever, and he'd follow them and he said when their base came into sight, that's when he would pounce, because that's the moment they relax their vigil. Oh, we're safe now. We can see the base, and it killed them. They died because of this assumption. You're not safe until you put that plane back in the hangar. Then only are you safe. Yeah. Be thorough, people. Be thorough. Be thorough. Be thorough. See, impeccability. They weren't impeccable, and they died for it. Yeah. Yeah. Very important story. Very important story. Yeah. Yeah. Don't relax your guard. Don't relax your guard until it's appropriate. Not ahead of time. People always do this. And it always amazes me with athletes, track athletes. When they get just that moment before they get to the line, they slow down. Watch them, always, right? They never run through it. To me, psychologically, if I was an athlete, I would put the finishing line a couple of yards or meters past the actual line. They lose that fraction of a second every time. It's too fascinating. And they never realize this because, oh, I'm here now. But our perception is usually just slightly ahead of the actual physicality, right? So you have to make that adjustment.
This is very interesting, Syl. Oh, this is very interesting what you're saying, because I've been listening to someone who was saying that, okay, never tell your goals or whatever you want to do in life to anyone. It is not because of an evil eye or a boo thing, but because the human mind works in the effort reward system. And once you just tell everyone, okay, who you love, of course, and they love you back, they definitely going to appreciate and of course encourage you. So your mind, your subconscious will already get that reward, and you will lose that enthusiasm, that spark to achieve that. And that's why it is actually very okay. It makes sense now, because before that I was like, okay, yeah, I'm just sharing with my close ones who of course I will not get that evil eye or the boo or any negativity. But when that person was actually explaining, and now you are making connection with that, when we see that, okay, this is like, okay, when the pilots were seeing base, okay, now we are safe, we are at home. This at home feeling is like, okay, already getting a reward. So you lose that concentration, you lose that spark.
Exactly. Because we've stepped into the future, and we brought the future into the now, and they're not the same.
Yes.
Right? When we do that, we are actually taking the future and making it the now. Same as those athletes. Even though it's a split second, they're still taking the future and making it the now. Not the same thing. There's another, now you bring up a very, very compelling motivation for not sharing your plans, because when you share them, you're now releasing your motivation. And also, you are locking in, you're committing to that. And that's the second reason for me, and why I learned not to do this, because I saw how it locked me into that path. Because I'm saying what I'm going to do, not that I've started and I am doing it. The going is still potentially changeable. Once I share and say I'm going to do this, well, now I'm pretty locked into doing it. And I saw this with my friends and with other people, where they needed to change. Something came about and they couldn't, because, well, now it was an expectation and an obligation, and it was a very difficult thing to get out of. And it really messed them up. So I said, no, I will tell you what I have started doing, but not what I'm going to do. Yes, once it's in place, once it's in motion, fine, then you can share it. Yes. Yeah. So yes, driving, very much you put your life on the drive. In other words, people drive not only impeccably, but deliberately. Drive with anticipation, drive with awareness. Yes, drive with sobriety. Yes, be impeccable with your driving. I really make an effort. I really, even though I don't drive a lot, I drive very short distances, and I still don't. Yeah. I would prefer not to if I can help it, but since I have to, I need to do it for my work, business. So still very important, but a very useful mechanism for leveraging deliberateness and impeccability and awareness. Drive with anticipation. Don't zoom up to the traffic light and then slam on your brakes. I see people do this all the time. Like, seriously, you couldn't anticipate a little bit ahead and see that the light is red? No. But it's that impatience too, and in their bubble, driving, I gotta get there. It's like, man, they make their driving stressful. Very important psychological perspectives and understandings that we've shared, right, Beena?
Yes, yes. And now it is time for us to
go.
To say bye for now. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much, Norma. Joseph, we are just saying thank you because yesterday we missed your comments there, which is like, okay,
I did respond in comments to him, but I wasn't able to do it live.
Yes. And whoever joined us on Instagram and YouTube, Christopher Abbott, yes, It is wonderful to have you there. Okay, before going to end this, I just to re-encapsulate all these things. Look at the bigger picture. This seem like Don Carlos is the one who is getting and receiving, but as sharing is always a dual uh, business, it is always 50% is giving and 50% is receiving. We assume that sharing is just all giving. No, when Don Juan is sharing, he's also receiving. And what he is receiving, this is very magical because at this stage of awareness, where he can, of course, share, but still he is receiving. Sharing is a mutual business. I always say that. And now I am seeing that how much he is also receiving. That's why we were setting this intent that we want to meet Don Juan and understand and connect with his intent to Moreness. Yes, of course, mediums can vary, and of course, we do appreciate that because, again, this is knowledge. Just before leaving, I just want to share something very interesting here. In my culture, in subcontinent, people will love to go to shrines where, okay, some people who have that like spiritually highly designated people are buried, and they go there and they say that, okay, we still feel them, they still bless us, and they go there. And in those shrines, commonly I have seen that it's like a pattern that I see a lot of makeshift kind of shops. They are stalls where they are selling copper rings, bands for wearing, and copper bracelets, and of course some anklets also. Very simple but copper based. And I was like, okay, what is this? Why they are selling that? It is a common pattern there. Uh, those bracelets, copper bracelets, they have been given by those people for the body pain and ache. Like, okay, yes.
Right.
They
For
were
like
saying that, okay,
arthritis and
they are,
rheumatism and stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, but they were saying that, okay, because they are spiritually charged, so that, okay, this person is still blessing us. So once I'm now wearing this, all my pains are gone, which is right. Of course, it helps because when you are wearing copper, it helps to do that. And my brother and we were discussing that how people just connect everything to something else, like, okay, oh, it is a spiritually charged and it's a blessing from that, or someone was reciting something on it, which is of course could be helpful. I'm not negating the value, but for me the real value was that someone has that in knowledge and wisdom of actually deciding that, okay, yes, copper will be helpful no matter what the spiritual connectivity with that. But I do appreciate that wisdom, that knowledge that they do have that okay, understanding that copper is helpful for this to remedy this pain and arthritis and other things. This is what of course, I do appreciate that because mostly these people were not connecting to science and technology and other things and research, but it's still having this awareness, having this wisdom. This is what I appreciate. And then same for all the mediums Don Juan is using. I don't know what other people might think of it. I am personally, I'm not brave enough to try all these things, but I still do appreciate that this is something they were doing, of course, and opening the door for others. And this is the appreciation, capital A appreciation, where you really do find, even if you disagree with everything, but still you can find something to appreciate. And this is exactly what we need in our life now. When people are in argument, when they are coming from completely different side, completely opposite perspective, which doesn't make any sense to us, which sounds so illogical even when they are saying, maybe they are also aware of it. And they are still convinced that, okay, this is something, yes, we believe in that. Even then, if it is absolute rubbish, foolish nonsense to you, still we can find some goodness in every perspective. At least we can connect with their innate goodness, the way they are passionate about these things. And this is where the communication starts. And communication is the key for awareness. because without communicating, you cannot share awareness. So do not stop communicating with other people unless or until, of course, it is an extreme. So this is something I was keen to share because this is what I'm learning from Don
That's
Juan and Carlos.
most, yeah. Wonderful share, Beena. Wonderful share. Wonderful share. Let me add something onto that. Beena's not used to me saying, I don't think you've heard me ever say about anybody else, oh, they're a knucklehead and they're foolish and that's like stuff like that, right? Why do I say it about
Yes.
Carlos? Right? For many reasons. Because, as I explained the other day, that I am, I'm really scolding my own nincompoopry, at least in the past. I mean, I still have a lot, but very much similar in the past, right? Yeah, when I was a
Yes.
boy, particularly. Now, so I'm scolding myself, but also that when I deal with people in the world, I am able to see all of their nincompoopry. Right? I have a great skill and ability to do so. Right? And if you ask me, I can spell it all out for you. But please, please, if you're a friend of mine, do not ask me earnestly and seriously to give you a full, detailed report of positive and negative about you. I can do it, but it's not something
Don't
I
ever
like
dare.
doing. And this, yeah. I mean, you're going to see the awful truth. I mean, I'm going to give you a very accurate assessment, but we
Oh,
don't want to hear
yes.
this about ourselves, right? And
Yes.
yes, I mean, if you can handle it, then that would be quite an accomplishment, and I'd say good for you. But still, it's not something that I would like to do. However, I possess another profound skill, and that is
Yes.
to, and I worked very hard on this. Why? Because otherwise it's too easy to get consumed by the negative. Because most people are, we start off in a state of negative, which is our nincompoopry, and we learn to be negative through superiority paradigm culture. So I learned to see it first, but then because uh, this was not a very good way of relating and being, and I saw too much, in other words. So I had to find a way to deal with seeing too much. So then I learned to be able to set aside what I see, to de-emphasize it to the point that the other is not even aware that I know it. It's so de-emphasized. It's still there. I know it's there, but it's not activated. It's just there in a little pocket, right? Further, I developed a third skill, and that is the skill of finding and connecting and seeing the person's moreness when
Oh,
even
yes.
they themselves do not see it. And this is what I
Yes.
typically do. So that's why
Oh,
Beena kind of
yes.
gives, she stand up for Carlos and defends Carlos and gives me a bit of a hard time for being a bit harsh on Carlos. Because it's not what I normally do. Yes, and
Exactly.
it's moreness paradigm, moreness culture is to see that moreness. But I do it deliberately with Carlos. Why? Because I want to expose the contrast between Carlos and Don Juan,
Yes.
and also to
Yes.
show where Carlos is starting from. If we're not acutely aware of that nincompoopery, we don't see it in ourselves. And here we
Oh, yes.
have an opportunity to see nincompoopery front and center, right? And because it's not only about the nincompoopery, right, which is we immersion into negativity, because we have the massive contrast with Don Juan. Don Juan's moreness is so powerful that Carlos's nincompoopry is tiny. It's marginal. It's fractional compared to that, which allows us to see that nincompoopry without being consumed by it, being stressed by it. Yes,
Yes.
and bothered by it. And that's very important. So it's a unique opportunity to study our nincompoopry, our nincompoopry. Yes, I want to be very clear here that this is we're
You
studying
always made
ours.
yourself very clear, and we are aware of it, and of course your listeners are also aware of it. I'm just sharing my perspective. This is how I want to see things, and this is how I want to have this perspective. Of course, it doesn't negate the value of sharing the completeness. I'm not sharing the completeness of Carlos here. You are sharing the completeness there because you are
Correct,
giving the
correct.
complete perspective. So yes, it is
Yeah,
absolutely appropriate for you,
right,
of course, to do
right.
that. I'm just focusing on, because this is how I
I
just see
love it. I
myself.
love it, Beena. I love
I
it.
see
I love it.
myself there. Yes,
Yeah,
all the
yeah. But
nincompooperies
you're
and
bringing
everything I see.
nobility to bear, and
Yes.
in from our Moreness project, and true nobility. This is the noble ideal. It is to absolutely make that insistence on seeing the positive, even though you know the negative is there. Right? This is a noble activity, and you bringing your nobility to bear. Yes, it seems I am unduly harsh on Carlos, but there is a logic to it. And your reminder of it, it brings balance to this perspective, which is very necessary. So between the two of us, we're presenting and sharing a fuller picture of Carlos and Don Juan. And it's very important, right? Very, very important to see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So very
Okay.
cool, very cool. Yeah,
Thank you
I
so
love it.
much,
I love
everyone,
it.
for joining us. And we'll
Absolutely,
see you
yes.
guys tomorrow. Before going, again, a gentle reminder that if you find
Yeah,
something
yeah.
valuable here and something enjoyable also here, please do click like and subscribe to this channel, because by doing so, you are going to train your online algorithm, which is ultimately going to affect your
Yes,
life algorithm, because they are ultimately
correct.
connected. Please do pay attention to what you are providing as nourishment to your, of course, to your brain, and of course to your soul.
Yeah,
So please do pay attention to. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
yes. In other words, attention feeds your life.
Absolutely.
Good quote there. Good quote there. All right. Bye
Bye
bye,
bye.
everybody. We had no eagers today, so I can't say goodbye to any eagers. But yes, bye bye, Norma. Bye bye, Christopher Abbott. And bye bye, everybody. See you tomorrow. And live video and and me.